What is good, YouTube? It's your boy Ragtricity, and today what I want to talk about is the Devastation Evoker. So the Evoker has been out just over a week. Dragonflight is a matter of days away when I'm recording this video, and I've been playing pretty exclusively Evoker. For the last week, I haven't played it on beta. I only know what it is like at level 60 for now. But I want to talk about what has the last week been like for me playing Evoker, specifically Devastation. How does it play, both in PvE, PvP, because I've been doing some mythics as well, and just generally, you know, the ins and outs of Evoker and what it's been like so far, and should you yourselves try it out. And I just want to give a bit of a spoiler. I am a big fan of the Evoker. I've decided that I will be maining Evoker at the start of Dragonflight. I'll be ditching the Hunter because, you know, I mean, Hunter is underperforming a little bit. It doesn't look great anyway, but I'm having so much fun on Evoker, and I think it is what I want to be playing as my main class. But anyway, the ins and outs of Evoker, some of the things we got to start. So first off, why have I decided to main Evoker? What about it? When did I decide this? So initially with the launch of announcement of Dragonflight and Evokers, and I was really unsure. I think, like a lot of people, I looked at the models, I looked at the class, and I was like, oh, this looks weird. It looks, you know, people have their opinions about the models and that kind of stuff, and I just wasn't sure about it. And then literally about 3 weeks before the Evoker release, maybe at the start of the first phase of pre-patch, I started watching some more videos about Evoker and really trying to learn about it and look at what it's like, and I was like, you know what, this actually looks pretty fun. It actually looks like it could be a pretty fun class to play. You know, the fantasy of you have this sort of human, or really it's a blood elf form, isn't it? And then you can in combat turn into this dragon which does these crazy spells, which has things like deep breath, where you fly across the battlefield, like laying waste, kind of like a dragon in, you know, your favorite fantasy films or TV shows or books or whatever. And it just started to grow on me, and so I decided, you know what, I'm going to farm up loads of conquest, funnel loads of gear into it, so in pre-patch I can really give it a go and decide, do I want to play this class? And I just want to say I've had so much fun. I was hesitant, I wasn't sure, but I have had so much fun with the Evoker so far. Some of the things to throw out there is it has had very mixed receptions from people who aren't playing it. I think anyone who's played Evoker can say this is a super fun class. The customization is great, the gameplay is great, the empowered spells both in PvP and PvE. I was worried about them in PvP, but oh my word, they work really well. You can see me flying across the battlefield, going back in time, high mobility. It's super fun, but people, you know, are pretty rude. I think I say in whether it's in BG, solo shuffles, even looking for Mythic Plus groups, people are, you know, you've probably seen it, you may have this opinion yourself, using the term lizard in sort of a derogatory way, and people, you know, are very opinionated. People don't like the models. I think people wanted kind of beefier, more ferocious looking dragons. Look at me rescuing the utility. We're going to talk about that a bit, but you know, ferocious more dragons rather than these kind of I wouldn't say they're bad looking. I think this gameplay you're watching is like day 1 or day 2 maybe, and I've customized and changed my Evoker loads, you know, using the free barbershop. If you didn't know that, you can customize it as much as you want for free in the barbershops. Yeah, to make it look as cool, badass as possible. And so I've done that, and you can really play around with this. Another deep breath. Honestly, I can't say enough how satisfying, both in PvE and PvP, that is, especially in solo shuffle or arena, when you can get the kill with a big deep breath. It is unbelievable, and especially at level 70 in arena, you're going to be able to turn it into a stun as well, that when you deep breath you stun people. So fun. But yeah, so people have very mixed reviews. I think any new class is always met with a bit of hesitancy. People aren't always sure, but just look, if you are playing it, be aware that people can be idiots about it. I also, another reason that, you know, I wanted to play Evoker, and I think again this goes back to mentality and these people who maybe are a bit against it, is a lot of people don't like change. I'm often one of those people in everyday life, but I decided, you know what, There's a new expansion. I'm committing to trying to grow and get better and better in this expansion and really up my gameplay. And I want to be someone who is ahead of the curve, who is thinking ahead, who is trying out new things. There's like that business phrase for those people who are the early uptakers or whatever it's called. I wanted to be that with the Evoker and learn it and do that, and it might turn out that the Evoker is really good as well. In Dragonflight, I think there's a history that normally in their first expansion, new classes are generally pretty overpowered, and so that's another reason to play Evoker. But now let's talk about a bit about the gameplay. Since we're watching gameplay from a BG, let's start with PvP. But if you are a PvEer, I will be talking about PvE as well, because I am going to be raiding and doing Mythic Plus within Dragonflight, and I've done a bit in the pre-patch as well. So from a PvP perspective, you can do a lot of damage. That's the first thing I've noticed. Obviously, the high mobility, having hover, going around your cooldowns. Once you learn how to use your cooldowns well, you can do a lot of damage. You can really hit hard consistently, but then you also have a number of one-shot mechanics. You have your big cooldown, you have your instant fire breath every 2 minutes, you have your empowered spells, which boy, do they hit really hard and can be really, really satisfying. But then your disintegrates, your living flames, your on the move Azure strikes, they do actually consistent pretty good damage. And so in my solo shuffles, I've found generally, I managed to compete on DPS pretty well. The one thing I will say is in arena and that kind of stuff, your rescue is invaluable, especially when you have a talent that gives you a 30% shield and the person you rescue a 30% shield. That can be really, really valuable and can win you rounds, save lives, all that kind of stuff. But and then you have your sleepwalk, which you have to talent, I think, into a 50, or is it straight 15-second cooldown? I can't remember. Anyway, I have it as a 15-second cooldown, kind of like a shaman's hex once it's talented, and that's kind of all the utility you've got. You've obviously got your interrupt, you can do a lot of damage, but there's not that much else you can provide. On the right arenas, you can knock people back and stuff. So just to be aware, if you're looking for a huge control class, if you're used to playing maybe Hunter, Mage, Rogue, and you really want to keep that control, Devastation Evoker probably isn't the class for you, but there is elements that you can maximize it. Obviously you can CC, you can position really well, but at the end of the day, I think Devastation Evoker, what they're good at is consistent output and damage with some burst in there. Then from a PvE perspective, so again, I think I haven't raided loads and done much content, but I will be doing that in Dragonflight. But from a Mythic Plus perspective, Evoker really pumps, even without gear. Personally, I think because I've nailed the single target rotation through PvP, I noticed as I've been doing Mythic Plus dungeons, I'm absolutely pumping on bosses, like really doing great damage. And I still need to work on my sort of AoE rotation, but it seems really great. It's really, obviously, with Evoker, even as a caster, you have so much movement with Azure Strike, with Hover, with Pyre being an instant, so your AoE is you can be constantly on the move, you don't have to be standing still, it's really good fun. And yeah, I feel like it's going to be really strong. I can say, I've said it a million times, it is a really, really fun class. You have some heal utility as well, some raid utility. In your Mythic Plus or raid, you also have some abilities which I haven't got talented right now, but where you can take like your raid or group take like 30% less like AoE damage or area of effect damage from bosses and stuff, which in Mythic Plus raids, that can be so useful on a 2-minute cooldown. You obviously have rescue, you have little heals you can pump off. Once you can stun it, your deep breath every 2 minutes for Mythic Plus, you can do big damage with a stun. And all that kind of stuff. So you have a lot of utility. You have your interrupt, you have your knockback, you have your knock up, which are they aren't your class stuff, they're actually the Drakthir racial stuff, but obviously they're part of the class at the moment since you can only be a Drakthir Evoker. But it's there's loads to go for. And then obviously the thing I haven't talked about is you have your raid utility, you have your buff, which decreases the cooldown of each class's or spec's major movement ability by, I think it's 15%, and which can be huge. You know, for some, I know some classes are buzzing about that, and it can have a big impact. Others, like I think priests, it's your leap of faith, and I know some priests aren't particularly happy, and they're like, oh, there's other stuff that could have affected. But that's going to be huge. And actually, you know, when it comes to raid spots, you're going to want an evoker. Any raid is going to want evoker just for that buff in itself, but plus the big damage, the ability to burst and AoE, all single target really well. And so overall, I'm about to win this BG, I think. I think here I'm about to sort of die and then we win. But Evoker is so much fun. If you haven't given it a go, I really recommend it. That it puts out a lot of damage. There's so much mobility. It's so fun to play. And I look forward to maining it in Dragonflight. And I hope you enjoy playing it too. Thanks so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, drop a like, subscribe to the channel, and I will see you in Dragonflight.